Alright guys, welcome back to another video. So as many of you have seen the results of the LCS over the weekend, we had, I think, 3 Zoodiacs in the top 8. It may have been 2 in the top 16, but I think the 2 that really took people by storm were the Control variant that was playing D-Shifter in the main, and then the big mashup of 3 different engines that we've pretty much, I think, discussed at this point. It was a mixture of pure Eldritch and then also the Dogmatica cards. Now, in this episode, I wanted to cover the one that I liked the most, the one that I think would probably do the best across the board, just based on its ability to really control your opponent and its similarities to just like a pure Zoo deck. And that would be the one that was piloted by, I think it's Nicholas Delhey. It's Delhey. Sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, man. But I really like this list. It's extremely unique. We're seeing a bunch of different hand traps that we don't normally see in the form of Dimension Shifter and also Ghost Ogre in the main. I saw some people citing Ghost Ogre. I think it's a really great hand trap. It just gets better as the format progresses because the decks that people play change. So, it's good against Dragon Link. It's good against the Virtual World cards, which, you all saw the results. We had a huge influx of people playing Virtual World, which I think is a good deck. It is just kind of boiled down to VFD Turbo. I don't know if you all saw the finals match. It was Pac versus somebody else. I can't think of the other guy's name, but it was the mirror match. And it was literally Pac making VFD game 1, the guy scooping, his Pac's opponent making VFD game 2, scooping, and then going into a game 3, which it was just kind of like a brick fest at that point. So really, I think it was just down to Nibiru in game 3, which shows you how high impact that hand trap is. Nibiru is fantastic. It can definitely win you matches if your opponent overextends. Not saying the Pac overextended because he really did have to just play with what his hand was, but it did contribute to him, not being able to really recover too much because he had to put a lot of resources on board to really do much of anything. So this isn't a virtual world discussion, this is a zoo discussion, so let's go ahead and just jump into this gentleman's list here. So the card to note, Dimension Shifter, this is what everybody is talking about right now. If you have no cards in your graveyard, this is a quick effect. You can send this card from your hand to the graveyard, and until the end of your next turn, any card sent to the graveyard is banished instead. Now that is any card, so it's not like Herald of the Arclight where it's just monster cards. It is literally any card. So you just shotgun this card, hope your opponent doesn't have the Gamma for it, and then you pretty much win because you're banishing your opponent's resources, just right out of the gate, and there's not a lot of decks that really +2 hard from having their cards banished at this point. You might find some weird rogue matchup where if your opponent's playing like the new mutant cards, they can really kind of manipulate their graveyard and their banished cards better. And, Virtual World to an extent, banishes their cards, and then, they have effects that can, recycle them a little bit. But really, it's still hard if your opponent's, entire deck is getting banished at this point. So it's a really strong card. He's not playing Avarice, so you really don't have to worry about your graveyard too much. You just have to play very control heavy. And it's more so than what you would normally experience because you're not going to be getting any of your graveyard cards back. You're not recycling. So at that point, you're not going to be really abusing Chalk-and-Eye until later in the game. You're not going to really be abusing Tiger until later in the game. So you really have to have a firm grasp on when to Trident cards, when to interrupt your opponent with hand traps, and stuff like that. The other downside to that is the fact that you can't use card effects that have to discard to the graveyard because Dimension Shifter prevents cards from going to the graveyard. So unfortunately, if you Dimension Shifter and also have Ogre in hand, you cannot Ghost Ogre because that card specifically says in its text it has to be sent to grave. So that seems to be the only negative interaction here. There might be one interaction. I'll get to that the closer we get to the traps, but for now, the hand trap lineup, seems pretty simple. You have the 3 Dimension Shifter, the 3 Ash Blossom, the 3 Ghost Ogre. Ghost Ogre is a high impact hand trap. It's probably one of the weakest high impact hand traps, but it does remove a resource from your opponent, and if you hit them at the right time, it could really hurt. So if they don't chain block the Romulus and Dragon Link, if you hit the Romulus, they have to have 2 additional extenders because they can't just go like link off into Link Ross, get their 2 tokens, summon a tuner, and just kind of go from there. They have to be able to keep extending, which really isn't hard for them, but it does make them waste resources. You could also Ghost Ogre like a Savage Dragon on its activation if your opponent hasn't made Herald. You know, there's some interactions like that to really keep your eyes peeled for. 3 Debir, pretty standard at this point. I think most decks are playing Debir in the main. The Zoo engine is pretty much the same also. We have 3 Whiptail, 3 Thoroughblade, 3 Ram, 1 Rapier. This does kind of conflict with Dimension Shifter because, you know, you would want to send to grave if you're opening this, you know, but it's not like a mandatory effect activation, so you don't have to use that effect. Then we have 1 Zoodiac Barrage, 3 5 Formation Tenki, 3 Pot of Desires, which I think is correct because you really want to draw into these cards that will be disrupting your opponent. Then we play 1 Cosmos, which I thought was extremely interesting. It's basically doing the exact same thing as Dimension Shifter, except it's not until just the end of your next turn. It's a permanent thing. All cards get sent to the graveyard, or to the banished zone, so anything that would go to the graveyard gets banished instead. Now, funny little interaction, you can't actually Ash this card, because when this card resolves, you can special summon 1 Helios, the Primordial Sun, from your hand or deck. Technically, that is an effect that can't be negated with Ash, but, you know, that's a very niche circumstance. Just something cool I kind of wanted to mention. Moving on, we have 1 Imperial Order. I think this is extremely strong. If you look at the Virtual World cards, which was the biggest represented deck during this tournament, a lot of their spells kind of advance their game state, and that is the point of them. So you have the card that when it's in the graveyard, you banish it and you basically search a Virtual World card and then dump a card from your hand. It also has an unfield effect where you can discard 1 card, target 1 face-up card on the field, I believe. It might be monster, it might just be face-up card on the field, and negate that card's effects. This would prevent that from happening, so that is usually kind of how they bait the Dryden, is by doing that, discarding, you know, have to target Dryden, or, you know, and then Dryden has to chain to that, and the, you know, Dryden's dead for the turn. So that slows that down. It stops Pot of Desires, it stops, you know, Foolish Burial of Goods, which Virtual World also plays to get the spell engraved, to get the search, so it stops a lot of power spells in the format. It also stops, like, Dragon Link, their ability to play their field spell, which is a really strong recovery card for them. It definitely helps them extend. It also stops cards like Quick Launch, which, you know, is effectively an extender. Or I don't know if it's called Divine Lance, or it's the one card that Romulus searches that lets them equip failings from deck. You know, so it's just an overall really good one of. It doesn't hurt you too much because at the end of the day, you're only playing 7 spells. You know, at that point, you're pretty much just controlling the game. You can also answer this with your own Tridents if you need to, but I don't really see that being super relevant, really, at any point during the game. Then we have 3 Mistake, which we saw this card being played a long time ago in Zoo. Back when Zoo first came out, people were main decking Mistake because they were playing against decks like Necroz that literally just search all the time. You could honestly side Mistaken back when Invoked was still a new deck. You know, Alistair searches, the field spell searches, they were playing cards like Desire, so anything that really searches or adds cards from the deck to their hand, Mistake is a good way just to kind of shut that down. Now here's one of my favorite cards of the format, Ice Dragon's Prison. You all know what this does, but it has an extremely unique interaction in the mirror match. You can take, or special summon, a Zoo monster from your opponent's grave and just choose not to banish anything on the field, and then you have a Zoo monster to start climbing into. So you're not only removing that resource from your opponent, you know, in the future, you're really able to just kind of combo off, because that could potentially lead into a Zeus play or a Drill Driver play, and it just puts more bodies on your board while taking resources away from your opponent. And then to round off the deck, we have Infinite Impermanence. 3 copies of this, pretty standard. I think most decks also play 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. Now the extra deck is pretty much the same as you would see in any Control Zoo deck. We're playing 3 Tiger Mortar, 1 copy of Hammer Kong, 3 copies of Chalkonine, 1 Dryden because we have to, Borbo at 2, Zeus at 2, Drill Driver at 1, Link Karibo at 1, and Megaclops at 1. Now, when I was looking at his list, I was kind of confused about the Link Karibo, because when I was looking at deck list, I saw a lot of people playing Gnome Material on the side, which is a hand trap, and it's a level 1, but it's pretty much dead after turn 1, because you're really going to, most of the time, have like a board presence. Gnome Material is just not good if you're maintaining that board presence. But it is still really strong because you just discard a target one of your opponent's cards. That card can't be used as, link material or anything like that. So it was definitely a meta call. I actually picked a couple copies of this card up a few weeks ago because I thought if Zoo became the most popular deck, it would be good against them because you just know material on their normal summon. They can't link climb into that, and their turn effectively ends. There's really not much extending Zoo can do past that. It's really hard for them to put another body on board, so they just lose their turn, basically. It's like Lancia against Dinos, in my opinion. So I thought that's originally why he was playing Link Karibo, but then I looked into his side deck and he wasn't playing it. So he is playing Crow, though, which is your, I guess, reason for playing Link Karibo. I'm not sure if I would play Link Karibo if I wasn't side decking no material, but then again, there's really not many other cards that you could put in here. You could put in like a Nightmare Phoenix, or you could put in like a third Megaclops. It's really just up to personal preference at that point, but the Link Karibo was the only thing that kind of struck me as weird in this deck. Going on to his side deck, he was playing 2 copies of Skullmeister, which is good. Like I said, in the Virtual World deck, a lot of their cards do stuff in the graveyard, so their spell banishes. This can activate when that happens, negating the card's effect, because whenever a card effect is activated in your opponent's graveyard, you send this card from your hand to the graveyard as cost, and then you negate that effect. So it's got a lot of applicability in this format, especially when things are kind of graveyard reliant. So then we played 2 DD Crow, just kind of good in a myriad of different matchups. It's good against Dino, you could banish the Miscellaneousaurus. It's good against Virtual World, you can banish the spell or the trap or any card in their graveyard. It's good against Zoo because you can make things like Avarice mistiming. You could DD Crow one of their targets for Chalkonite or Tiger Mortar, if you're in that kind of situation. It's just versatile and has a lot of applications in the meta. Then we have 3 Token Collector. This one is one that you don't really see cited a lot this format. It was big for a while, and it's kind of gone in a parabolic, kind of curve where it sees a lot of play, doesn't see a lot of play, sees a lot of play, doesn't see a lot of play. I'm not really sure exactly why he chose to side deck it, but you do see a lot of decks, that topped side decking this card. And I'm not sure if it's for Nibiru protection or what it is, but while it's on the field, you can't be Nibiru because the token can't be summoned. It's just how Token Collector has been ruled and how the card itself is worded. So it does prevent that. I'm not sure if any deck right now is really abusing tokens. I know it prevents Lost World from triggering, which is really nice if it's already face up on the field. So it's theoretically good against Dino. But outside of those 2 applications, unless I'm missing something, I think that's what it's primarily used for. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I'm definitely still kind of adjusting to this new format with the new decks from the most recent set. So I could be missing something. And then we have Pankratops at 1. It's just a really, really good card. I've talked about it a lot in the past. It's 2600. It's a free special summon most times. Baits negates, baits back row, baits monster effects. Just generally a very good card. 3 Cosmic Cyclone. This is definitely really nice, I think, as the format evolves, because we're seeing Virtual World pop up a lot more, and their trap card is a banish to pop a card on the field. And you can make them waste the resources a little bit by doing that and then chaining Cosmic Cyclone. So I feel like Virtual World's strength against Zoo is in the form of them being able to remove their 1 normal summon or prevent that summon from happening. Also, VFD is really strong. They can pump out Crystal Wing if they're playing Ultimate Zulkin, which I see a lot of builds playing. So, they have a lot of interaction when it comes to the Zoo matchup. So we need really anything that can kind of, remove their ability to interact with us. I think one card that might see play in the future would be Forbidden Chalice, because VFD is just kind of like a, our turn has to end if we don't open up, like impermanence or a way to answer their VFD before it gets on the board, which, I think, and don't quote me on this, but I think they can make VFD as their 4th summon. I might be wrong, it might be their 5th summon, which still leaves them susceptible to Nibiru, but I think some of these decks have ways to play around it, and I think some of them even play to VFD, just for situations like that. So they can just kind of keep extending after the first Nibiru if they have the resources, make a second VFD, and then you're just kind of like, well, I'll make Drident pass and hope he can't kill me on the next turn. It's really just kind of one of those cards you have to look out for. Feather Duster, just because it's a generic back or removal card, it hits them all. Very good against Virtual World. Rogue, post sighting, it's really good because a lot of people will be sighting in trap cards and whatnot to kind of interact with you a little bit better. And then lastly, we have Solemn Judgment. This card is definitely really good in the side. I was maining this for a long time. I'm not sure if I still will. I definitely have a lot of deck crafting to do. I like this build a lot. I don't know if I'll be tinkering much with it. I might just take the deck at face value, test the deck, see what I like and what I don't like, and move on from there. I still really like Avarice, and I don't like how this deck basically makes Avarice obsolete in a way. I know a lot of people are moving away from Avarice right now because it's too slow. Maybe I'm just a little nostalgic for the card. Maybe I'm kind of blinded by that nostalgia a little bit, but I do think it is still good. Maybe just not for everybody. So we'll see how the format pans out. We'll see if that card kind of fades from popularity. And, if it does, I have no qualms about removing it from the deck and playing different cards in its place. I just really like the card. But, Judgment, great card to side. Kind of back on topic a little bit here. It's just says no to your opponent's normal summon, special summon, card activation. Judgment at the right time really puts your opponent in a tough spot. So overall, I think this deck is really good. I definitely want to congratulate this gentleman for his top 8 performance. He piloted the deck very skillfully. These luxury gaming tournaments are very big tournaments. They attract really good players, so a top 8 finish is phenomenal. I hope to see more from him, and I am very excited to see how this format pans out. This tournament really kind of flushed out the top decks, so we're going to be seeing a lot more Dino, a lot more Zoo, a lot more Virtual World. Virtual World I'm really excited about being a new deck, so we'll just have to see how it goes from there. So I want to thank you all for watching. The support has been phenomenal. You guys have been viewing the videos, liking the videos, commenting on them. It's just so heartwarming to get the level of support that you guys have given me. So I want to thank you for that. Please, keep a lookout for more videos that I post. I'll try to kind of, let you know when I'm posting in other social media platforms, on Facebook. I'm in the process of making an Instagram for this so I can kind of do a little bit more with the channel. I do plan on doing some interviews with some well-known collectors, kind of showcasing their collections and their hobbies and what got them into collecting Yu-Gi-Oh cards. So that's definitely something to look out for. If you don't mind just doing the same thing you normally do, like the video, comment on it, share it if you can, and then I look forward to seeing you all in the next one. Thank you.